today we are going to talk about 401ks and IRAs, individual retirement accounts. I don't know if you have one, don't know if you want one, but you should get one way or the other. First, we'll get into 401s and 401ks and why, if they're available to you, are very, very, very important, but there's also some downsides that you do have to be aware of, but there's a lot of upside to it, and individual retirement accounts, both Roth and traditional. Now, there's a lot of debate, which is best. We'll cover that very briefly, and this is going to be a broad overview, and hopefully it motivates you to get started with your own 401k or, because you can do both, an IRA, an individual retirement account. So let's get into it. 401ks, I keep clapping because I'm excited. 401ks and individual retirement accounts. First, I wanted to go over 401ks. Now, a 401k is a plan that's provided to you from your employer, and you could opt in or you can opt out. It does not matter to them one way or the other. However, most companies, if not all companies that do offer a 401k, this, like I said, this might not be applicable to you, but come along for the ride because there's other tidbits in here that apply to IRAs also. First, I got to say, I am not a financial professional. I'm not licensed to give stock nor investing advice. I'm just some guy on the internet that does a lot of study. These are the things that I do. They might work for you also, but do your own due diligence and check with your own financial advisors. I'm not responsible for your wins, your losses, or anything like that. That's on you. This is what I do and my opinions. That being said, 401s, generally they are sponsored by your place of employment. Now, what happens with a 401k, you have options, and most people do not know you have options. They sign up for the 401k and they just let it ride. Now, by default, if the company that you work for that's offering you the 401k is a publicly traded company, they will, by default, enter you into their stock buying program. So right out of the gate, you are buying company stock. So you are becoming a employee owner to a very small magnitude, but nonetheless, that's good and that's bad. Think Enron. Enron, the employees was this is back in the day, they were so heavily vested in their own company. And when that company went belly up, they lost all their retirement because it can go up, can go down. All your eggs would be in one basket. Now, if the company's doing well, you're confident with the company, you have some leverage, some pull, you see the ins and outs of the company, maybe it'll give you a little more confidence to stay invested as company stock only. However, that's not what I would do. I would diversify inside my 401k. And a lot of people don't know that you can indeed diversify your portfolio inside a 401k. However, it's limited. If you go, whoever's sponsoring it, it's usually a bank, an investment firm, or whatever, your 401k. If you do have one, you should go in there and look what their offerings are. Their offerings will be limited. They are directly tied to the company that's doing the management of the entire 401k portfolio. And at sometimes the expense ratio, which we'll talk about in a minute, will be higher than what you'd get on the open market, say going through Robinhood or JP Morgan or Schwab or something like that. They're charging you a premium and their offerings are limited. These are not bad things, but they are limited. Now, what you'll see when you click on whatever pie chart they happen to give you, it will show where you're vested. And it will have a pie chart or a graph or something like that. And if you're only company stock, by default, you'll own all shares of company stock. Now, they will allow you to buy increments. If your company stock is at 300 and you're only contributing 100 a week, you're buying a third of a share. So they are allowing you to buy in proportion to the amount that, because it's a fund, proportion to the amount that you're putting up. If you choose to diversify and say, no, I want 25% going into company stock and I want 75 here, or 25, 25, 25, you're allowed to split up your contributions, but you have to go through their list, and it won't be a list like covering everything in the stock market. You're not going to see PLTR. You're not going to see SCHD. You're not going to see most of these things. So you have to download the PDF from each one of them. I hope everyone's got a notebook out. We'll watch it later. I'm going to cut this into a shorter video, but it'll take about 2 days. So keep on top of it with a notepad. So your choices, again, will be limited. Maybe you'll have only 10. Maybe you'll have 5. Maybe you'll have 20. But past that, they're not going to give you the range. What you'll be offered is things like aggressive, limited risk tolerance portfolio, low risk tolerance portfolio. And that'll be like the primary things that they'll try to sell you on. And they'll tell you it's based on your age. If you're 25, you're looking to retire with this company, blah, blah, blah. You have plenty of time to go through the ups and downs of your portfolio. So you can be aggressive now. So you would check, I want 75% going into the aggressive one. That's up to you. I would not, however. Go down the list until you find something that mirrors something that's available in the open market, such as something that tracks the S&P 500, something that tracks small cap companies, follows mid cap companies, something that follows NASDAQ, something that follows the Russell Index. You'll find them in there, but it won't come out and tell you that. So you do have to download those PDFs and figure out what's right for you. What I would do, I would go after something that definitely follows the market or keeps pace. If the market's going up 11%, I want to be in a fund in my 401k that's sort of trailing the market to the best of its ability. I want to be in something overly aggressive. I don't want to be in some shit I never heard of. I don't want to be putting all my money in foreign ETF funds sponsored by so-and-so and, like weird shit, because there'll be some weird shit in there. Like I said, it's limited, but choose wisely what you're going to put your money in. If you're still confident with your company stock, put a portion. They will allow you have 100%. So you can put 5% here, 10% there, 20% there, whatever suits your needs. Now you can elect to put in however much money you want. Now there are caps. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it's generally ACH'd, electronically transferred out of your paycheck, because everyone gets paid electronically these days. You're not getting a check and standing online on Friday. So they take it out of your check prior to taxes being paid on it. So if you decide that you're going to put in 100, let's say 100 a week, that is pre-tax. So it is straight up $100. Now on the back end, when you start doing your withdrawals, that's when they take the tax out. But up front, you're not paying the tax on it. So within that $100, you can tell them what you want to do. Now, the beauty of a 401k, if your company's got their shit together, which they generally do. I haven't heard of a 401k that doesn't match, but maybe there's some that are out there. If your company does matching contributions, therein lies the power of a 401k, in the matching contributions. Basically, the matching contributions, in my opinion, is the only reason you should have a 401k. The only reason. And I'll explain why in a minute, besides the fact that you're getting a matching contribution. So let's use round numbers. You make $1,000 a week before taxes. You elect to put in 5% of your income pre-tax into it, which would be $50. Great. That's what you're going to take out every single week. Now, depending on the company, companies do odd things with matching. Some will match your 5% dollar for dollar. That's awesome. You put in 50, they put in 50. So that's amazing if you think about it. That is an amazing thing that they're going to match. Some companies will tell you, okay, we will match 100% for the first 1%. So you put in 100, so that 1% would be 10, and they put in 10. 10 and 10 is 20. Great. Then they'll say, for the next 4%, or the next 5%, or the next 6%, or the next 10%, we will match 50%. So once you hit that 1% where they're matching 100%, you put in 10, they put in 10. So now for the next 3%, 4%, let's round it up, keep it to 5% as your contribution. For the next 4%, they're only putting in $5 for every 10. So you're putting in 50. They're matching the first 1%, playing along, writing this down, that's $10. The next 4% is 5, 10, 15, 20. So they're putting in 30 on top of your 50. So you're getting 80. Some companies will match dollar for dollar. Some will only match the first 3%. Some will match the first 2% or 1%, 100%, dollar for dollar. The other ones will go to 10% and match only 50% or 75. It's up to the company how they want to fund. They're basically giving you this money for free. That's why if you are offered a 401k, it's almost a must. It's a no-brainer that you should participate in it because they are going to give you free money. And who doesn't want free money? That money that they're putting in there will compound. It's not like comps at a casino where you can't cash it out and it's freaking worthless. They are making the matching contributions into your 401k that are also going to grow in value, grow in interest, perhaps grow in dividend along with your money. So instead of putting in $50, now you have $80 each week instead of 50. So you have better than 50% more money that's going to gain in value and appreciate and compound over time. Now the rub is this. There's two rubs. One is, well, it's not really a rub. Here's what you got to keep in mind. Once you find out what the company max is, if they're matching 1%, dollar for dollar, and then 50% on the additional whatever, but that's it. You find out what the max contribution that they're doing is, and that's where you stop. What? Why wouldn't I want to put more? Many reasons. You stop, or I would want to stop, wherever their cap is. If their cap is at 6% that they're matching, that's all I'm putting in. If there's 10%, that's all I'm putting in. If it's 3%, that's all I'm putting in. Because why would I want to continue to put money into this fund that is not getting matched? Plus the fact that, one, they tend to have higher expense ratios, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and they're not offering the same products that you can get on the open market like JEPI, SPY, DJ. You cannot buy individual stocks inside a 401k except the company stock. Most of what you'll see in their portfolio that they're offering you is not really dividend growth stocks or growth dividend portfolios. They're just straight up capital appreciation. So you're not going to get the dividend unless you're in the company stock, which provides a dividend. So there's no reason to keep that money in such a limited way for it to grow and gain value over time if they're not matching it. So you find out what the match is, you go for the match, and then that's it. Then you can, if you still want to contribute, you can go ahead and get another IRA. well, not another. You can get an IRA. You can have both. You can have a company sponsored 401, and you could also have your IRA, and you can also have a portfolio outside of that as well, because there are limits to how much you can put in, which we'll talk about right now. Okay, we'll talk about expense ratios. This is powerful across all of them. We need to know about things like this. Now, for a 401k, you can put in, and I'm going to read off the list here, you can put in $23,000. That sounds like a lot. You can put in $23,000, which is close to $2,000 a month, which plus or minus, let's call it $450 a week. That sounds awesome, but what would you have to be making to contribute that and still have them match it? You'd have to be in the $500,000 a year category. 400,000 a year, I think you'd have to be in, something like that. You can do the math in order for that to happen. So to put in 23,000, if you're making 1,000 a week, which is 52,000, these are just round numbers, they're going to max it out at, say, 5% that they will match. What does that equate to? That equates to $50 a week, which is 2,500, 2,600 bucks. It's 2,600 bucks. Are you going to put 23,000 into that and not reap the benefits of their match and have limited access to the portfolio that you can build? I don't know why people would do that, but some people would do it because it's easy. You just take it out of my check, but an IRA, they could take right out of your check too if you'd like them to. No problem with that. Do the ACH, fill out the paperwork, but whatever. Why would you put in 23,000? I would put in the 26, if my math is right, correct me if I'm wrong, and then I'd put the other into something else. I'd buy individual stocks, I'd buy a bunch of ETFs, foreign, domestic, AI, slow growth, fast growth, mid-cap. I would do that with the additional money. I'm only interested in this 401k because they're giving me free money to play along. That's why you're doing it. And if you're over 50, you could actually put in 30,500. That's a lot of money. You'd have to be making, like I said, to get to the 23 or to the 30,000. If you're making 1,000 a week, you're only putting in 40. You'd have to be making 10,000 a week to be putting in 500 a week, which basically that almost comes out to. So you'd have to be making close to 10,000 a week, which is $500,000 a year. If you're making $500,000 a year, score. Because they're going to match that. They're going to be giving you $300 a week, which adds up unbelievably. They're giving you 15 grand a year just about if you're in there. However, there are limits to how much you can make, not so much on a 401k, but within the IRAs, there are. Now, your total contribution per year can only be $69,000. But you say, hey, wait a second. What's the math on that? The math on that works out that includes your employer's compensation, your contribution also. Some employers, if you work for some of these Silicon Valley companies, they will actually match 2 for 1. For every dollar you put in, they'll put 2 or 3. And people think about that. You think about, what is my career? What do I want to do? Company says to you, hey, listen, this is your job. This is what we want to do. And we have a 401k where we match 3 to 1 on your contribution. That you should factor in to your thought process about working there, because that's pretty freaking amazing to be given that, and again, pre-tax, the whole bit. But anyway, so you have to do what's right for you. For me, I would just go right up to the very, very edge of where their contribution is. And then I would find other places to put my money. I would not put all my money in company stock, even if it was dividend paying, because you have all your eggs in one basket, maybe 50-50, 25-75, 75-25, something like that. All your eggs in one basket, and the company goes belly up. Guess what? Your 401k has a balance of zip. All those years, 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 5 years of pumping money into that thing, it could be worth nothing. If the company that you're working for gets bought out, gets run into the ground, hostile takeover, just Enrons or something like that. 50 or older, they allow you an extra 7,500 that you can put in anytime that you want as a catch up per year. But again, on a 401k, why would you do that if they're not matching it? That's the whole principle. For me, I would just play the 401 game to the match, and then I'm off into some other category, because that's the benefit of it. Because the downsides of it are all 401ks, they have a higher expense ratio than an IRA or something you can buy on the street. That's a given, and that's a fact. So you are leaving so much money on the table if you're contributing past what they're matching. You're leaving tons of money on the table. That's just mathematical because of the VIG. You know, they can have a fund that sort of mirrors the S&P 500, but it'll be at like 0.92%. That's their VIG, almost a percent. Then you can go out on the open market and buy the same ETF that has 0.035 and put the money in there. Same tax benefits, same everything. And you're going to save and accumulate and compound more by saving that percent. It'll be way under a percent. So you contribute. I would contribute just up to the point that they match, and go find a better place, because if you don't, because it's easier, you're leaving so much money on the table. And I just showed those little numbers, that sneaky 1% adds up to 40,000, adds up just in a 10-year without ever contributing again. It whacked 20%. 20% of your return is gone due to the high cost of an internal 401k. Yeah, I mean, they don't teach this. This should be mandatory in school. It should be mandatory that kids learn this stuff. You know, I mean, one day we'll sit. One day I'm going to do a money talks that's like 3 or 4 hours. I mean, I'm finding that this 1 hour is not cutting it. And I will go over what Social Security has done and how horrendous an investment that is. If they allowed you to even take that and put it in a high yield savings account, it would demolish. I mean, what are you going to get back in Social Security if it's around $1,200, $1,400, maybe if you're lucky? That's nothing. That is absolutely nothing. Why do they want you involved in Social Security? So they could frickin' use that money. You think it's just sitting there and big stacks of frickin' hundreds? No, they're using it. It's the world's largest Ponzi scheme, technically. It's a Ponzi scheme. But if it was sitting in a basic high yield savings account at like 4.9%, you'd be getting like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 a month when you retired. Not one. It's a total scam. It just makes my head hurt to hear that people have unless like a really shitty company, but if they're offering a 401k, most likely it's a publicly traded company. Why not free money? I'll take your free money all day long. But you must dig deep into their portfolio offerings, because they're not coming from the street. They were made specifically for you and for that portfolio. So you can swap in and out of things. I mean, some have turnover. You can't go in and out the same day. You have to wait 48 hours, a week, and all this other shit. So you do have to be on top of that. But I would diversify inside a 401k and not go purely company stock, unless, you happen to be working for a great company that's, returning 9% dividends and they let you drip it back in. That might be a different story, but yikes. So, Bror Fredrik, Raw and Uncensored, Money Talks, healthy, wealthy, wise, and informed. I love you guys. And on that note, Bror Fredrik out.